everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to a brand new edition of Did You See That? And I'm Mike, and thank you so much for tuning into this review. I got to check out a very late showing of Edgar Wright's new movie Last Night in Soho, which I've been looking forward to seeing for a long time, especially when the trailer first ever dropped. And I didn't know a lot about Edgar Wright until my partner actually mentioned that he's done stuff like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and I was like, oh wow, okay, great. Well, I know a lot of those movies, and I actually like those movies as well. So this guy has clearly got a lot around him as well. But I've also got to give a big shout out firstly to a Christy Wilson Cairns, if I pronounced that correctly, who also helped do the screenplay for this. And she's also done a screenplay for the movie 1917, which was obviously well received, and also a TV series Penny Dreadful. So clearly this lady is on the rise, especially in terms of doing screenplays, and definitely plays out in this movie. Of course, as you've probably seen in the trailers, if you have, or maybe the marketing posters, the movie stars Thomaskin McKenzie, if I pronounced that correctly, and also Anya Taylor-Joy with Matt Smith, and a special shout out to Michael Agio. So what is the premise of Last Night in Soho? Well, basically it's set around a fashion designer student who is in love, infatuated with the 60s. Anyway, she gets a placement in London to study that as part of her course or degree, whatever she is studying. And whilst then having dreams, she's then kind of teleported into the 1960s, where she starts embeddling these dreams and battling through these dreams. And that's all I'm going to say with the plot, because I don't want to give too much away or spoil anything for anyone who has not seen this movie as of yet. So what are my initial thoughts on The Last Night in Soho? Basically, I want to go see it again, and I actually am on Wednesday. So yeah, I actually really thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and I thought that in terms of a thriller, I felt like it really brought a different vibe to it. And it could be that it had this 60s essence around it, whether it was the soundtrack that was composed and the numerous hits that was played through there. And also I've got to give a big shout out to Anya Taylor-Joy's solo number that she performs in this movie, which has definitely been highlighted and marketed in the trailers. It's kind of a haunting version of the original Petula Clark song, of I've got that correctly. It's a fantastic rendition of that song, and really definitely one of the biggest and key elements to this movie, and certainly plays a very valuable part. Now, in terms of the practical and CG effects, for most parts, they work pretty well. I also love the use of the practical effects in this movie. You can definitely tell that they are sprinkled throughout, and they really played off well to whatever the scene is doing or wherever it's going, and it was executed pretty well. So I've definitely got to give big major props there, but also I've got to just give the biggest props to three people mainly in this movie. So mainly Anya Taylor-Joy as a character called Sandy, we've got Thomaskin McKenzie as Eloise or Ellie, and we've got Michael Agio as John. So those three all together in this movie were fantastic. All likable characters, and all characters you could kind of get behind. Yes, maybe some of them hasn't got the biggest backstory in the world, but I didn't really feel like that played a key part, or we needed that much more backstory about them than what we got to kind of give you an interest in that character and get behind them and whatever their actions were, whatever they were doing. I've also got to mention in this movie, firstly, also, it also marks the final appearance of Diana Rigg and Margaret Nolan, who unfortunately did pass away. Firstly, just rest in peace to them, and my condolences do go to their families as well. And for the roles that those two ladies portray in this movie are pretty good and certainly valuable to the story as well. So they really give a fantastic performance, and their family should be amazingly proud of what they were able to accomplish in this movie. Last Night in Soho, yeah, it might have a couple of negatives, but I can't really discuss them without going into spoilers, which I'm not going to do for you. But all I'm going to say is that any negatives that I do have are very minute, because I actually thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I just sat back, relaxed. Also, I had this anticipation going into the movie, and I definitely felt like I left this movie not disappointed at all. Overall, like tonally and just the cinematography as well, whether it's the bright, vibrant essence colours screaming off the screen, or whether it's the darker colour palette that we get and the kind of this like neon red that's flashing, it's just mesmerising to watch, because those colours really do scream out off the screen and grab your attention, and you're like, oh, okay, I know something isn't right here. And that kind of vibe stays with you from the start of the movie right up until the end. So Last Night in Soho is an awesome film, and definitely one of my contenders of one of my favourite movies of the year. So with that in mind, my overall score for Last Night in Soho is So yeah, if you've seen the movie yourself, please leave your comments down below and let me know what you thought of the film. In the meantime, please also give the video a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you already haven't. And until the next time that I see you, I'll be seeing you later.